Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Ask the Expert series. We are very excited to have Will Peguero here and Russell Drewe here with us today from Harneys to speak about the importance of regulatory reporting and investor services. Before we get started, a bit of a background on Connect by Nova. My name is Catherine Kelly and I am on the board of directors for Connect by Nova. Connect by Nova is a new non-for-profit organisation here in Cayman that is fully focused on providing our community with careers advice and work readiness resources. This can include hosting webinars like these, to working on one-on-one with individuals on their own career action plans. When working one-on-one with individuals, we assist with resume building, LinkedIn optimization, and even helping individuals with their own direct applications. That's a bit about Connect and who we are. Now I'm going to pass you on to Will and Russell to introduce themselves and to get on to today's topic.
Welcome to everybody. We're here, my colleague Will Peguero and myself, Russell Drewe, here just to talk about a little bit more about regulatory reporting and investor services within the offshore world. As a brief introduction, my name is Russell Drewe. I'm the Compliance Solutions Manager at Harneys. I'm a manager for the teams that deal primarily with the registered transfer agency side of relationships with offshore entities, and also dealing with several aspects of the AML and customer due diligence side of things. Part of what I'm here to talk about, we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. And also I'm here with my colleague, Will.
Thank you, Russell. William Peguero here. I head up the regulatory reporting team with Harneys and the Compliance Solutions Division, working alongside Russell to facilitate all of our clients' fund administration needs from the AOI, RTA, and EML services perspective.
Perfect. So hopefully everyone will be able to see my screen. We've just put together sort of a brief breakdown, and we can see on the next screen just some of the topics that we're going to be talking about. Just as a brief overview, we're going to, both of us, speak about our particular areas in just a little more detail. We're going to talk about the opportunities, any sort of educational qualifications that could potentially get you ahead of other people that we see in terms of when we're looking for recruiting. Just a general overview of the market here in Cayman. And just some other little bits and pointers where hopefully we could help. And then at the end, we have an opportunity for us to answer as many questions as we can. Obviously, we'll try and answer everything to the best of our ability, but if there's anything we need to take offline, then we will do that as well. And we will obviously endeavor to reply to any and all and every question that we get. So just to kick off a little bit, just as a brief introduction, here, the Cayman Islands, we're recognized as a major international financial center. I was doing a little bit of research this week, just putting together these figures, and I saw that in the second quarter of 2021, we had 12,451 mutual funds and 13,820 private funds that have been registered, which, as you can see there, I don't want to go into too much detail, is an increase just fairly significantly from Q1. And overall, looking in the general context, this gives us approximately a 20% market share, which is fairly substantial given the size of the islands, given the size of the population. We do have a disproportionate proportion of the registered funds on island, and effectively what that means is that it's a big growth area. Particularly what we're looking at in terms of regulatory reporting and in terms of registered transfer agency work in AML CDD. It's a very large growth area and it's still growing. And the people we work with are some of the leading experts from all around the world. Everyone likes to take the opportunity of the offshore jurisdiction. And so it's from my biased opinion, it's a very interesting position to be in because we get that opportunity to work with so many different people. And so just moving on briefly, just to describe a little bit of what I do, I touched on the fact that my team deal with registered transfer agency and AML, customer due diligence services. Just to put it sort of in a brief context, what we see here is that we are investment managers and general partners like to structure their investment vehicles offshore, and they also like to outsource certain parts of those key roles to third-party providers such as ourselves here at Harneys. And we feel that we are incredibly well placed to deal with their requirements because we have a very strong legal link. We have very, very dedicated and experienced professionals in a huge variety of fields. So it's one of those areas that we feel we can really assist with. And I think that's the same across the island with the other providers as well. And part of what we look at in terms of our day-to-day role within terms of the registered transfer agency is ultimately our aim is to make our clients' life as straightforward as possible. We want to give them the opportunity to effectively focus more on the investment side of things, which is what they're trying to do in whatever structure that may be. If they're looking to invest in housing, or if they're investing in a certain strategy, then we would like to take that pressure off them so that by doing the other aspects of the role. So we will do the things as straightforward as maintaining a shareholder register. We will send out regular statements just detailing sort of how the fund has performed, because everyone likes to know how that sort of has worked. And also we need to make sure that the anti-money laundering and customer due diligence documentation is in place. And I think that's very key, especially given sort of the current climate. There's a lot of scrutiny on offshore jurisdictions. And so it's very important for us to be able to demonstrate that we are 1000% sticking to the legislation and the expectations on us. And we do. And so just to explore that in a little bit more detail, we look at every investor who comes into our portfolio. We need to make ourselves comfortable that we are fully aware of the purpose of the vehicle. We need to have an awareness of who is the beneficial owners, who has control over the vehicle, and we need to get documentary support to that. And we also need to look at things like source of funds and source of wealth. So we need to be comfortable with where the money comes from. So sort of the role within the AML CDD department, we're sort of looking, we're a little bit sort of like, we have a little bit of a detective role as well. So we need to make sure we're comfortable that we have an awareness of who's coming into the fund. I think we're all aware of the background with sort of journalists and providing certain disclosures. So we just need to make sure that we are doing everything 100% to the letter of the legislation, and that's what we're very keen to do. And we work very closely with the regulatory bodies across the offshore world just to make sure we're adhering to those rules. And I think I never like to read the slides verbatim. I think it's also important to have an awareness that we have a responsibility to look at the AML role ongoing throughout the life of our relationship. We don't just have a requirement to look at it when an investor comes into the fund. We have to look at them periodically based off their risk structure. And we have to look at potentially if there's any transactional activity, we also have to look at it. So we have an ongoing duty throughout the life of our relationship. And I think that's one of the key points that we like to bring across. So I think from my side, that's just a very high level sort of take on RTA and AML CDD from our side. Obviously, there's a huge amount of detail, and I'm very happy to sort of, I don't want to bore people and talk about the minutiae of how we deal with that. So if anybody does have any questions or would like a little bit on clarity on certain things, then please, my contact details are at the end of the slide. So please reach out and I'll be very happy to answer any questions that people have. And so I'll just pass it on to my colleague Will, just so he can talk about his side of things.
All right, thank you, Russell. The automatic exchange of information, AEOI. As Russell stated, these services are part of a greater picture of what it takes to be compliant in the financial services world, where information is a key element, and the integrity of the information is a key element to be able to provide that service in a manner that's compliant with government regulations and international regulations enacted by a multitude of bodies. That is a landscape that's constantly evolving over time. The AOI aspect of financial services has been around now for approximately 10 years, from its original inception to date. And what AOI compliance means in terms of providing our services to our clients relates to the direct combating of tax evasion as far as FATCA and CRS compliance is concerned. The interesting aspect of this is that FATCA is a US-based reporting mechanism, and CRS captures approximately around 150 countries worldwide where otherwise the tax reporting would not be able to be facilitated for any entities or individuals that reside in those jurisdictions. So in terms of who this applies to, as you will note on the slide, it applies to financial accounts held by individuals, corporations, partnerships, trust, and other relevant types of accounts that are governed by these regimes. We provide this service directly by assisting our internal partners, which include Russell's team, the RTA team, the AML team, and our registered office functions. This also extends to our external partners that include the board of directors and investment managers and even other administrators that provide the services to our clients. The important thing with AOI is the fact that the information that you collect, as I've mentioned before, has to be very much carried under the microscope of legislature, where everything that's gathered, analyzed, and reported is done so in the manner that's expected by the authorities that receive this information and exchange it with the relevant countries. The other important thing that is to be noted with facilitating AOI is that you have to make sure that your classification of your entity as a financial institution is done so in a manner that is correct and is ongoing from the aspect of how you apply your due diligence procedures, how you identify account holders within these financial institutions that are reportable to the respective jurisdictions. And that's not something that is simple or that's done in a cookie cutter manner. It's very niche to the respective jurisdictions and how they consider their tax implications. But at the end of the day, it's a service that is done to maintain the integrity of these financial institutions and obviously to combat, as I mentioned, the global tax evasion. If we can move on to the opportunities section. Within our compliance solutions team, there are a multitude of opportunities depending on the level of experience that is carried. And that ranges from junior administrator all the way up to director. As you can see here on this slide, we have about 0 to 2 years experience for your junior administrator. The corporate administrator typically will have about 2+ years experience within the field. Senior administrators, 4+, assistant managers, 6+ years, and managers and directors carrying more than 8 years experience typically to fulfill these roles. This is very important because at the end of the day, your experience exposes you to the number of issues that are constantly evolving within the field. And it gives you all the necessary tools that you need to be able to tackle the issues at the different levels of the service that you will provide within the opportunities that are allowed to you within a typical compliance solutions team. The education and qualifications required to facilitate these roles are typically a combination of a ICSA certificate or diploma, a bachelor's degree, and or the relevant experience within that that would match those qualifications. it's noted here on the slide that for junior administrators, and high school diploma is acceptable, but typically that's under the agreement that that further education is being sought after, because this is something that you'll constantly be learning more and more about your job, and there'll be more things that you have to take on as you develop, and as the regulations and the legislature around facilitating these functions develops, and even us ourselves, we're constantly learning and engaging different educational platforms to gain better experience and better basically tools to do our jobs with. And it's something that you might have heard before, that the learning never ends. So it's something that we're keen on in terms of continuing to provide a good service to our clients. So Russell.
And I think just to provide a little bit more background to, sorry, I got a bit of an echo.
My fault.
We share a room, so therefore sometimes when we talk on the same call, we get a little bit of echo. So we're trying to perfect our muting and not muting. So I think just also doubling down a little bit more on what Will said when we talk about the opportunities in terms of experience. There is a real opportunity for people to gain experience in this field. The landscape is constantly changing. There are so many different areas. We are having internal meetings regularly where we're talking about new developments, new approaches. It's a real growth area, and it's one that, again, obviously we're pretty biased by working in the field. It's an area that we feel there's a great opportunity from all levels with which to get exposure, and it's something that if someone has that appetite and has that desire, then there is a real opportunity to be able to push through and get that experience and get that exposure and progress at a very rapid rate, simply because it is a real growth area at the moment. So I just wanted to touch a little bit more on that, and I think generally, just talking overall about the market in Cayman, which sort of flows from that, we're seeing, as I touched upon in the introduction, we're seeing a huge increase in the number of registered funds, and all of those, or a large proportion of those funds, are seeking third-party providers who really want our assistance with being able to provide services for them. We see that the offshore jurisdictions are still very desirable, despite sort of attempts from other competitors, shall we say, to make them less desirable. We have huge integrity based upon a dedicated, skilled workforce, and it's something that I don't think I'm being too optimistic to say that position will remain in place for the foreseeable future, simply because we have the structure and the foundations and expertise in place. So I really think that the mid to long term future is very good, and I think there is a real opportunity for people within the compliance field, and that takes a huge variety of different sort of subcategories within that. So I think the overall outlook is positive. So I think that's something that people should have an awareness of as well. And I think just looking generally, just as a general overview of recommendations for people who are interested in this field, some of the areas we're looking in, if we think about FATCA was only introduced in 2014, CRS, which was previously the IGA, was it the IGA? Will, correct me if I'm wrong, in terms of the British FATCA was a year or two after.
UKC dot, yeah.
And then that's evolved into a, he's failed again with his muting.
Yeah, it's evolved into the global standard now called the CRS. So yeah. And
yeah, so I think that's what, maybe 8 years ago, and now that is a huge area within with tens of thousands of engagements, if not more, across the jurisdiction. So things are growing in a relatively short period of time, and everyone there, that was new. So everyone was starting at the bottom, and now there's been progression. So I think it's important to note that it's a good position. We call it the bottom. It's not really the bottom. This is just where you're gaining experience in a key area. So something that we would suggest that it's good to start at the beginning to then get an understanding of everything that people are involved in. I think the other point is a lot of what we do. We have a lot of client-facing and investor-facing engagements. So technical ability is very good. We're looking at the being able to streamline processes. We're looking to utilize our IT suite as efficiently as possible. But it's also important to have the personal touch as well. We're constantly dealing with I have a lot of clients from South America, from Asia, from Europe, North America. So we deal with people all across the globe. So the personal skills as well are important as well. So if technical skills can be learned, personal skills, if that's your forte, I would also recommend that the compliance field is a very interesting area as well, because that's part of the soft skills is they're very important with which to sort of achieve success in certain projects. So that's also something I'd recommend having an awareness of. And I think that's just sort of a brief overview. So I don't want to go into too much detail.
I've got a question in our chat box, if I can reach out to both of you for this. So our first question is, does Harney offer internships or apprenticeships in compliance, particularly for school leavers that wish to enter into the market without a formal degree, offering training and the access to courses while they work or gain experience?
The quick answer is yes. I am sad to say I do not know the specifics, but I can absolutely take that away, and perhaps I don't know if you're able to share the details with the person who asked, and I can reply. I do know that we have internships opportunities, especially for school leavers. So that is absolutely something that we offer, and something that I'm more than happy to provide more information on.
Great. And also I've got another question. Is there a difference between ICSA and ACAMS?
I would say no.
Okay.
It's something that we would look into, but I believe that that's obviously one of the things that we look at. But there's other bits of experience and other factors that we take into consideration when looking for roles. So that I would be comfortable to say that there's not. We look at every educational qualification.
I mean, to expand on that a bit, I mean, there is a difference between the two, I guess, academic bodies where they are recognized differently. The ICSA being the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, and ACAMS being more focused on compliance techniques and methodologies. So there is that difference, but how we view them, I would say that, like Russell was on point there, where we view them the same in terms of effect.
Okay, great. Thank you. Carry on.
Well, I think this sort of takes us naturally. This is just a little bit of overview with our contact details. I'll leave that on screen just in case. I know you had a couple of questions that came out. This just provides our email addresses. So we're obviously very happy to have those conversations. And I think the last slide was just us, and I know it was just to take any opportunity with which to have any questions or conversations. And I know you've touched upon those two questions, and I was wondering if there's any others that had come in.
So I have a question. Purely, I'm just interested in what your background was and how you got to where you are now. Was it something you was always interested in, or is it you were doing one thing and then thought, actually, this is quite interesting, I want to go here? Or what was your kind of journey to get to this point? If we start with you, Russell, then go on to you, William, if that's okay.
Yep. For me personally, my background was actually I came over to the Cayman Islands from England just over 8 years ago now.
Okay.
So my background previously was criminal law, criminal prosecution specifically. Wow. And that was something that I had an interest in. But my wife is a funds lawyer. So then I sort of got into that sort of, we have conversations just high level, and it was like really interesting. And I saw the overlaps, and then we made the decision that we wanted to move offshore. And I originally moved into the FATCA field in sort of 2014 when I first arrived on Ireland. And it just sort of flowed from there. Then everything else just flowed from there, and it was everything sort of paired together nicely, just in terms of looking at things in a little bit more detail, having that sort of understanding of where everything fits in. And we do a lot of document reviews in terms of the fund docs, the PPMs and the LPAs and the like. So it just felt like I just sort of felt a very sort of natural fit to move into that area. And here we are 8 years later.
Still there. And what do you love about your job? What is it that keeps you going every day? I
love the variety. Okay. I think we are fortunate especially in AML, RTA and AML, is that our role, we fit sort of in the middle of, we're like the central sort of hub of spokes that go out to the auditors, to the directors, to offshore counsel, to clients, to the investors. We have our sort of involvement with multiple different conversations, and no 2 days are pretty much the same. Obviously, we have our set things that we have to follow, but I'll be dealing with something in a SPAC on one morning, and then the next day I'll jump onto a call and I'm dealing with something to do with crypto, and we're dealing with all these sorts of different things, and I have a really, really good variety with my day, and that, I think that's like, that really helps with what I do.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. What about you, William?
Yeah, myself, having grown up here in Cayman, a big part of my life has been just the influence of the financial services industry and what that's meant to Cayman in its long history. And it directly influenced my decision to study finance in university when I traveled abroad, which led me straight into a career in finance once I returned home. And having been in the industry now for some 14 plus years, I've been fortunate enough to have experience across different aspects of finance, including banking, investor services, and fund administration. With the last, I would say, about 11 years being directly related to regulatory reporting and compliance solution services. And it, like Russell said, there's never a dull day. It's not a cookie cutter job. It's something that if you're keen to be an exciting aspect of financial services and something that's constantly evolving and growing currently, and you think about the evolution of what even money means in today's world with the influence of digital assets and those things, it's only going to get even more expansive, and it's only going to grow into more complex methods of protecting interests of investors and those different things that are important to compliance solutions functions. Again, it's an exciting time to be in this field, and it's a great opportunity for people to grow and develop and sharpen their skills if this is something that they're interested in.
And what tips would you give to potential students who are looking at your field for employment further down the line?
I would say, if they're looking into this employment to kind of get a grasp of what the different legislations are around facilitating these services and understanding the rules essentially of play. It's always good to have sharp technical skills, but you still need to know how to apply them. Okay. And critical thinking is important when you talk about AML decisions and AOI, compiling AOI work and those different aspects of the service that we provide. So it's something that if you're keen on it, I mean, you would be pressed to dig deep into understanding the whys and the hows of how this works.
Well, I've had no more questions. However, I know students will be rewatching this because we'll be sharing on YouTube. So as you mentioned on slide 10 of the presentation, that people are more than happy to contact you direct if they've got any questions. And if we have any questions from anybody else, we will fire them over to you. But on behalf of Connect by Nova, we really appreciate your time. And I can imagine it will be really useful to a lot of students. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.